I guess I'm live. Let's see how this works out. Let's start off with a rant about Mondays. I don't know why everybody hates Mondays. Once I hit the ground running, I can't stop. I don't want to stop being productive because it's Monday. If anybody decides to watch, let me know if the music is too loud. I can turn down that beat. I just want something behind it. What's up, Evad? I remember waiting until the sun went down for the full effect. As dark was closing in, I proceeded to fill the now empty champagne bottle with gasoline, stuffed a dirty rag in his mouth, and wandered through the suburb half naked and fully twisted, looking for a relatively safe place to do the deed. There was an early fall chill in the air that motivated me to get the show on the road, so I quickened my pace until I had found my target. There were markedly few parked cars on the street, and enough directions to run to feel an advantage if flight was necessary. The makeshift fuse lit faster and burned much more quickly than I had expected. So I lobbed the magnificent cocktail into the street and watched the crash. It was everything I'd hoped for. I knew I couldn't stick around to watch the physical manifestation of my post-teen angst for long with any expectation of safety. So I ran. Thankfully, the friends I had been chaosing with had been finished ransacking the medicine liquor cabinets and piled into a car to find me, as I had completely lost my bearings in the drunken escapade. They were all still naked when they picked me up. Mick was always the driver. Mick Williams III, to be more precise. He had become a good friend to me since returning from Connecticut. When I met him, he was a self-proclaimed juggalo, but it was pretty clear to me. But I could see that he didn't really fit that scene. He was much too destructive, far too volatile. It was pretty clear to me what it was missing in his life was punk rock. This was something I could help with. I suppose one could make the case that that was exactly the opposite of what he needed in his life. But you weren't there for the adventures screaming through Houston districts at high speeds, finding as much trouble as a minor and barely post-teenage provocateur could. He had been born and raised in Missouri. His parents had split before he was a year old. His mother had custody of him until he was around 6, and she was addicted to methamphetamines. She fed him popcorn mostly, and was absent, leaving him to deal with uncles, quote-unquote. His father and stepmother rescued him from the situation, thankfully, but it's obvious the damage from this situation had been done. His father was a moderately settled-down son in a family of bikers, tough bastards, beer drinkers and hellraisers. Nice folk. This combination of environmental influences created a young man that carried much anger and frustration, depression, anxiety, and a general sense of carelessness. Self-destruction, alcoholism, as well as other substance abuses only work to exacerbate these behaviors. I was always impressed with his ability to turn off his cognitive thought to do something completely reckless. Someone had capped his beer bottle at a party, breaking the neck and dropping broken glass into the remainder of the bottle. I remember watching/hearing him swirl the jagged-edged, now tumbler, hearing the glass clink and him saying, "That's not ice," before taking a drink. He had scratches at the corner of his mouth the next day, and he had said that there were more repercussions out the other end, but I don't know if that was true or not. Not that I was willing to find out. Once, in an attempt to try to demonstrate this amazing ability of his, I squeezed lemon juice onto a table and used a straw to snort it. I doubt I'll ever make an attempt to make such a clarification again. A most memorable night was one we'd spent in Galveston. Mick, Jason, and I climbed into Mick's Geo Amigo and jumped on the eastbound freeway and started drinking. At some point in the hour or so drive to our destination, Jason, who had been throwing bottles out the window as he emptied them, mistakenly smashed out the passenger's side rear-view mirror with his bottle. I always enjoyed when things got broken. We'd heard that there was supposed to be some large-scale party on East Beach, which was not our typical place to frequent while in that area. We could see across to where we had heard they were supposed to go, so we found a place to park and started walking the beach. That's not right. We couldn't see the access to where we had heard that we were supposed to go, so we found a place to park and started walking the beach. Somehow we'd gotten the wrong information, or the party had been earlier and already cleared out. The sun was going down, we had already trudged about a mile when the swarms of mosquitoes started coming after us. There were thousands of them. 3 of us. We had much too much exposed skin to keep them off of us, and every time we swatted we hit a handful. We didn't know how far it was to the nearest open establishment, so we continued our path with the hopes that we could reach a phone and call a cab to take us back to Mick's Jeep. It may have been another 2 miles before we found a hotel, and every step was miserable. We couldn't reach the place fast enough by that time. Even the grass burrs, goat heads surrounding could do little to stop us from reaching the lobby. Somehow our spirits were undampened, and we were bound to find the next place we could to chase. Back to Crystal Beach, where we knew there was usually enough trouble to find to satisfy. I don't recall the occasion, but there wasn't much to find there either. We drove through the dunes on the beach for a good while, hit a few causeways a little too fast a few times. Things didn't get serious until Jason tossed a beer can out of the window and we saw the flashing lights. Mick didn't have insurance, but had a fun trick he liked to play by using his dad's name and information. But that wouldn't help with the pipe that was right next to the paperwork in his glove box. Somehow the cop, with his flashlight directly on it, either didn't see or didn't care. He lied and said that Jason had actually hit his vehicle with the can, which we knew wasn't true. We told him that if he went and picked it back up, that he wouldn't be arrested. Somehow we escaped quite a bit of trouble that night. We were let go with a warning, but somehow still not satisfied. We continued driving down the beach until we saw a few vehicles and a fire. We had very little difficulty joining the group, and soon all of the previous drama was of little consequence. They had a keg and pills. We had liquor and crazy. I asked Mick not to take any pills before we left because of how much we'd been drinking. He'd said that he wouldn't, and that he didn't, but when 4 a.m. hit, it was pretty obvious that wasn't the case. I had no intent on sleeping wherever I fell on the beach, so I coaxed him into the driver's seat. The chaotic drive back to the other side of Houston was performed little by him. He had 1 foot on the clutch and 1 on the gas, but his eyes were shut completely and he had his hands in his lap. At my nudging, moved his feet for me to shift, and I steered. I don't know that I've ever made that drive in such a short amount of time before. How we survived is beyond my comprehension. Editor's note, or writer's note, that's not here in my writing of this story. We proceeded to Mick woke up right as we were pulling into Jason's trailer park where he lived with his mother, and we decided to go ahead and run down every stop sign that we could find in that neighborhood. And then we parked, put on a movie, and tried to fall asleep. That was that story. A couple of stories, I think, maybe. Should I keep going? Should I just end it here? I've never done Facebook Live. I don't know that it's doing anything. Appreciate the comment. I just don't know if this is viable. At least I don't know if I can download this and upload it to YouTube later. I don't know if I should keep talking or just stop and download and upload it to YouTube. Should I just keep reading? I do have more. Give me a minute. Let me get caught up. Actually, I need to plug in my laptop. Can't imagine we're back up yet. Doesn't look like it. Hey! Appreciate you guys putting up with the technical difficulties. Seems like it's always something. Yeah. Pretty new to this. Can't imagine we're back up yet. Doesn't look like it. Alright. Let me get caught back up. Just give me a minute. Perhaps it has been my naivety that has kept me from thinking that there was some reason I wouldn't find prestigious players in the dens of Nickleby, under the same bushes, hiding involved in things they could never advertise publicly. And yet I guess they are. Just no one talks about it. Because, well, if I know too much about you, and you know too much about me, we can manipulate into doing all kinds of things. Can't we? Just making sure this isn't something I haven't read before. Not sure what to do in this situation. Yeah, I'm gonna go with that. It probably is my naivety that has kept me thinking that people are different anywhere you go. Not just because they have some title or air of superiority. This is probably something I should have learned a long time ago. Perhaps my willingness to trust people or to believe what people tell me is truthful. Too bad that's a mistake. Thieves, liars, swindlers, a whole lot of us. Hold out for hope. There have been a few good apples out there. Unfortunately, I think most of them have just been fodder for the ravenous wolves. Then again, why wouldn't I want to be able to take what people tell me at face value? Doesn't everyone? Isn't that why we make such a fuss about our word being as good as gold? It's our underprivilege to be called trustworthy. While I understand the experience people have with their families differs greatly from one individual to another, I doubt I'd be alone in saying that hearing the words "I'm disappointed in you" from a loved one or close family member can carry great weight. Teasing was an endless game in my childhood at home. This may be a common thing, and for most of my life I thought nothing of it. It had become second nature to keep to myself because any sign of weakness was an opportunity to be taken advantage of or exploited. I was no less guilty, as one tends to become one's environment. It was when I was thanking my wife for not taking the piss out of me for a poor entertainment performance of mine that I realized how deeply ingrained it was. She had no thought to do so, of course, and had always supported me. I'd like to say I was desensitized to shame by this. Perhaps to some degree that is true. But I'd like to say I was, but not when it counted. I'm not sure anyone can truly become numb to shame. It seems as human a quality as any. As with any part of our nature, there are those who combat and deny it with some success. But do they truly rid themselves of it? I doubt it. I've become recently, as I started to uncover the damage I suspected was being done, to point out, especially to my siblings, the ugly nature of our dealings with one another. They weren't thrilled with it. I suppose I'd always been the oddest of us, though. Doubt that would be saying much, as we were already a pretty fairly strange crew. Might as well toe the line, as it were. Let me get a drink. In all fairness, I suppose they did help to prepare me for the cruel world. My mother did her best to try to protect me from that same cruel world. To be honest with you, I'll never know if it would have made a difference. Now I'm going to take a quick break.
Left this light on, both the air conditioners on.
I'm here.
No, you weren't here because I came in earlier.
I was only gone for a few minutes.
And did you notice that this light was off and the air conditioner was off?
Mhm.
Okay, good. What the fuck are you doing?
Can we give you a mohawk?
Huh? What's that?
Mohawk.
You have Mohawk?
I want to give you Mohawk.
Are you going to be at the studios now?
Nah, sort of.
And so you told your wife you're in a studio, but instead you're just drinking Keystones, hanging out there.
That's what it looks like.
Yeah, it does. Alright, I'm going to find a fucking set of those.
My mother did her best to protect me from that same cruel world, and to be honest with you, I'll never know if it would have made a difference. Growing up in the woods on the outskirts of Houston, my family had about 5 acres of wooded land, and as children we did our best to make use of it. I was about 6 years old when my mother decided that I would tire or complain of herding too quickly, or what would be considered normal. My gait also seemed to be taking on a strange development. This was cause for alarm for us to visit a specialist. I'm certain I had to have complained nearly the entirety of what had to be 12 hours of x-rays, physical groping, poking, prodding, generally anything that could have been done to make a small child uncomfortable. The wait at the end...
What's this? What do you
The wait at the end of that was what I remember most clearly. I was starving, so my mom got me a candy bar from the vending machine.
This has nothing to do with work.
Shut up. When the doctor arrived finally to give us a diagnosis, everything started to become unreal. Like I'd suddenly fallen asleep and was dreaming the words that were coming out of his mouth. Bilateral Legg-Perthes disease. Turns out it doesn't even exist. Not bilaterally, anyway. This hardly mattered at the time because we didn't find out for several years. I was about to be fitted for a corrective bar brace to go between my knees and fully discouraged to walk at all without it. I would need to wear it for 2 years. I would never have a normal life. I was particularly devastated at this moment because my cousin's birthday party was the following day at a mini golf course. I would not be fitted for the brace until at least the following week, so my participation would have to be minimal. I'd never been to the place and had all kinds of fantastical ideas about what it would be like. Now dashed. I remember dreaming about the place the night before, imagery based on my brother's previous descriptions. I don't recall it being a good or bad dream, just a dream. The solution to my immobility for the duration of the party was to put me on a stool at an arcade game until I requested to be moved. Even now I feel mortified by being carried around, trips to specialty stores to get a large-sized jogging stroller for mine and everyone else's convenience. Once the braces were fitted, began a time in my life that may have been a catalyst for many of the anomalous behaviors I've engaged in throughout my years. Being short for 6 years old, 18 inches feels like a mile between your knees. The discomfort I felt from wearing them throughout the day made sleeping difficult at night. Furthermore, they recommended that I not sleep flat, so I was ordered a 9-degree pillow, which only complicated things further. I don't know what it was that didn't want me to let them see me break, so I didn't. Or maybe I did from time to time. 2 years is a long time in hell. I remember my mother telling me that she appreciated me not falling apart over it once on the way to piano lessons. Yeah. I remember my mother telling me, there we go. This was when I learned to let music be a substitute for me. I didn't want, or it didn't have to be me when I could be music. When I concentrated on playing, most everything else went away. My mother decided to homeschool my brother and sister not to protect us not only from the potential difficulty I might have had in school, but ungodly values. I tried my best to operate otherwise as if things were normal. I rode bicycles, climbed trees, explored the woods, went bowling, did as many things as I could relatively comfortably do, given my predicament. I still cringe at the old photos. The day I was cleared to remove the bastard thing, I found my dad's monkey wrench and went to town, letting out all the frustrations and hate for everything it was. Perhaps poetically, a fragile 8-year-old with a monkey wrench is little use against a bar of quarter-inch thick titanium. I barely put a dent in it. There is a lesson there. My gait and stamina hadn't improved, nor my pain levels. The doctor who diagnosed me had died of cancer before the braces were off. Life went on with little recourse to regain so much lost time. It wasn't until my sister had suffered a compound fracture, which means bone through, and gone to another specialist for surgery, that my affliction was properly identified. "Forgive me for asking," he said. "What does your son have?" My mother explained that I had bilateral Perthes disease. "No, he doesn't." Another round through the gauntlet of medical examination leads us to spondyloepiphyseal dysplasia tarda. The list of nightmare scenarios that can arise from that were explained to me were more than I cared to know. The bottom line in my case was that it was a situation where you didn't want to do anything until the shit hits the fan. Joint replacements only last for so long, and save for a total spinal collapse, I'm not a fan of the idea of having rods surgically implanted in my neck and back. I was told I'd be on ibuprofen for the rest of my life, if not worse. This was a dissatisfactory answer, though we were glad to have something. I was enrolled in physical therapy, put on a swim team, and tried as many foul supplementary herbs, vitamins, my mother could find support for. This may have been what has kept me out of a wheelchair all these years, despite my best efforts to throw caution to the wind, ignoring all signs of warning, push limits, and luck beyond all reason. As I approached teenage years, anger, hate,